Hello there, this is part 3 of my pre-HD Skyward Sword deep dive series. If you'd like to see the other parts, there will be a link to the full playlist in the description. In the previous part I talked about the motion controls, combat, and dungeon items, so I'd recommend watching that first. Enjoy! The motion controls are the biggest new mechanic on display, but Skyward Sword tries a lot of other new mechanics and game systems as well. And while they are all exciting new additions going forward, there are very few of them that I think were particularly well done here. For example, Skyward Sword is the first Zelda game to use the stamina gauge. I do honestly think that this is one of the most impactful changes to the series going forward, but in this particular game, it isn't that great of a mechanic. Link can now freely run, which is a fantastic improvement to mobility, and I'm absolutely glad it's here, but restricting the running by tying it to stamina is pretty unnecessary and doesn't add anything to the experience. I do think that stamina can serve a really important purpose in games, it just depends on how it's used. For example, stamina in action games like Dark Souls and Monster Hunter serve to make the intense combat a lot more dynamic and strategic. In Skyward Sword, stamina is used for traversal, but it totally falls flat because of the game's design. The reason why stamina is a really successful mechanic in Breath of the Wild is because it's used in the context of fully free movement within an open environment. Learning to choose ideal pathways while skillfully managing your stamina meter is really rewarding, since you can effectively explore the open game world as much as your skill level allows. Skyward Sword, on the other hand, has an incredibly linear design with very little freedom of exploration, so even though the stamina gauge itself is very similar, here it's used as a restriction on gameplay instead of as a benefit. There's only one correct path to take through each area, and the stamina gauge functions to limit how effectively you can take that singular path. Gameplay segments such as running up steep hills or climbing ivy walls do require stamina management, but not in an engaging way. You're just following a clearly marked specific pathway, and you have to wait until your stamina gauge is full before attempting it, otherwise you'll fall down and have to try again. These sections aren't puzzling or challenging, they're just kind of inconvenient. There's also no way to upgrade your gauge. Instead, during lengthier running or climbing segments, there are stamina fruits laid out along the path that instantly refill your stamina when touched. I think it's supposed to be a solution for the limited gauge, but it actually makes the problem more pronounced. You're only asked to run or climb in a straight line between stamina fruits with no critical thought involved, which makes the stamina limit feel like a real hindrance in these cases. I do appreciate that the stamina gauge is introduced here, and I am for the use of stamina in Zelda games going forward, but there's no particular reason for it to exist in this game. It's not that bad or anything, but it's more of a perpetual annoyance than anything else. Shield durability is first introduced in Skyward Sword, but it totally falls flat here. Normal guards against enemy attacks will damage your shield until it breaks, but a successful parry will prevent any damage. This does add some weight to parrying properly, but because shields can only be pulled out by parrying, and parrying is so forgiving in the first place, it's rare for shields to ever take any damage. Repairing a shield only costs 10 rupees at the scrap shop anyway, no matter how damaged it is, so durability is rarely a concern. Different shield types also have different strengths and weaknesses to try and offer some strategy to shield selection. Wooden shields burn in fire like they do in previous games, but now iron shields conduct electricity, so each type is useful against the hazard that the other is weak to. However, this is incredibly surface level, since fire and electricity never appear in the same area except in the final dungeon. You're just asked to bring an iron shield to the volcano and a wooden shield to the desert, and that's it. Sacred shields also render all of the shield changes pretty pointless. They resist everything, so wooden and iron shields lose all use once you unlock them, and their weakness is supposed to be their low durability, but they also recover over time, which defeats the point of durability in the first place. These changes were good ideas, but I think they were watered down so that they wouldn't be too punishing, and because of that, they aren't impactful enough. In Breath of the Wild, shields can't be repaired, so durability is a constant consideration, and thunderstorms and fire hazards appear all over the game world, so shield selection is always important. Sacred shields are replaced with guardian shields that still resist everything, but they can also automatically deflect powerful energy beams at the cost of durability, and they're very difficult to come across, which gives them a unique identity that also lends more weight to using wooden and iron shields. There are absolutely flaws with Breath of the Wild's shield mechanics, but the same exact ideas are used here in a far more impactful way. The reason I keep bringing up Breath of the Wild isn't to compare the two games and say that Breath of the Wild is unequivocally better. Breath of the Wild is a completely different game with plenty of flaws of its own. I am judging Skyward Sword on its own merits, but I'm using Breath of the Wild as an example here to point out that Skyward Sword's ideas can work to great results when executed well and with a clear gameplay purpose. Skyward Sword's experimentation paved the way for Breath of the Wild's fantastic game world and design, which I won't deny, but just because Skyward Sword has good ideas doesn't mean that they're good ideas in Skyward Sword. One new idea that I do think fares a bit better is the Adventure Pouch. It's a new inventory system in which you can only hold a limited amount of non-essential gear, things like shields and bottles, and the rest of your gear has to be stored in the item check. I really love this idea, since it means you'll have to make meaningful decisions about what to bring with you, and you can tailor your gear to match your playstyle. Your ability to proceed through the game never hinges on what you've brought in your pouch, which is a fine concession, but I think it was overtuned a little too much. Other than shields, a lot of the gear only offers a slight passive bonus or a temporary boost, so it doesn't affect the gameplay all that much. It's still enjoyable to plan ahead for a trip and pick what gear to take, and there is a difference between an empty and a full adventure pouch, so overall I'd say I'm lukewarm towards it. Bottles have always been quite useful in Zelda games, and attaching them to the adventure pouch does give them some extra weight, since you have to choose to bring them with you over other helpful gear. As always, you can catch a fairy in a bottle for an automatic revival. However, fairies are a lot more rare than in previous games, since there are no fairy fountains. You can draw on a goddess wall to spawn some if you need them, but you have to draw the full Triforce in one single unbroken line, which is kind of a nightmare. The rarity of fairies is actually a good change, not only because it lends more weight to each one that you find, but also because it encourages you to use the game's potions. Potions are more attainable than ever, since you'll frequently be returning to town, and the potion seller is front and center here. Most of the potions are new showings, which is really cool to see, but for the most part they aren't all that exciting. As always, there's a standard heart potion, but there's also a revitalizing potion that recovers your shield's durability. It may be helpful if you're struggling with parrying at first, but the Sacred Shield defeats the purpose of this later on. The air potion lowers your air gauge depletion while swimming for 3 minutes, but you almost never swim for longer than 30 seconds or so. The Guardian Potion increases your defense for 3 minutes, which is a solid buff to have, but it's too expensive at 200 rupees. There are more goods and services to spend rupees on than ever, so there's almost always something worth getting more than this. The Stamina Potion is the only notable addition because it cuts your stamina depletion in half for 3 minutes. It's a great buff to have in almost any situation because it lessens the arbitrary stamina limit, but it's not a solution for the limit in itself, so it doesn't alleviate any of my criticism with the stamina in Skyward Sword. The base potions, for the most part, aren't too exciting. However, you can increase their effects by infusing them with bugs you catch around the game world, which is a wonderful addition. The fully upgraded Heart Potion has 2 full heals in one bottle, and the upgraded Stamina Potion completely stops your gauge from decreasing, both of which are amazing options to have. The upgraded Guardian Potion even makes you invincible, which is ridiculously useful. I think this is why the base Guardian Potion is so expensive, but they could have made the base potion cheaper and had the upgrade cost more. I'm going to talk about infusion more in a little bit, but just know that I think this is a great addition. However, it does have the side effect of making infused potions more useful than most of the other Adventure Pouch items. Your Seed Satchel, Bomb Bag, and Quiver no longer get permanent upgrades like in previous games. Instead, you can purchase bonus ammo bags for each of them, and you can have as many of these as you can carry in your pouch. This means you can potentially have ridiculous amounts of ammo on you, but there are also far more ammo drops than in previous games, so you'll never be lacking even if you don't bring any bonus bags. The bomb bag only carries 10 bombs, so increasing that number does sound really useful, but thanks to the quality of life changes, you can completely fill your bomb bag anytime you find a bomb flower, and there will always be one nearby if you need bombs for something. Bonus seed satchels and quivers are more useful if you use the slingshot or bow a lot, but seeds and arrows are everywhere, so you can easily go without them. Along with bonus ammo bags, you can also carry various medals with passive bonuses in your pouch. Some of these increase the amount of rupees or hearts you find. It can be useful if you need the help, but you do get more than enough of each through regular gameplay. There are 2 medals that increase your heart total, which is useful, but I didn't like this, because it felt like a concession to have fewer heart pieces to find in the world. There's one medal that can mark bugs on your map, and another that can increase the length of potion buffs, which are both great bonuses if you specifically need them. I wish that there were more medals that offered niche effects like these ones. The treasure medal increases the number of treasures that you find, and the cursed medal increases both your treasures and rupees, but as a trade-off you can't use shields or bottles while it's equipped. Passive effects like other medals still work though, so you can stack the cursed medal with the treasure medal for a massive treasure increase. It's a really intriguing trade-off, but let's talk about treasures. Treasures are found around the overworld, and they're used for upgrading your dungeon items and gear at the scrap shop. Some of the upgrades are absolutely fantastic. The Scattershot, Big Bug Net, and Quick Beetle are all upgrades that greatly increase the usability of your items. And your bow can also be upgraded twice to bring it to the point that it does more damage than the fully upgraded sword. Even shield and ammo bag upgrades are nice options to have if you think that you'll need them. The item upgrades themselves are a fantastic addition. However, the upgrading system is severely flawed because gathering the treasures used in upgrades is a dreadful experience. There are only 16 different treasures, which sounds very manageable, but most of these are just plain awful to get. Some only spawn in specific set locations on the overworld, so if you don't find enough through regular gameplay, you need to repeatedly leave and re-enter the location they're in to keep gathering them from the same exact spot over and over, which is so tedious. Or is even more tedious, because you have to mindlessly dig in soil spots and hope that it randomly spawns. 4 different treasures are random drops from killing specific enemies, and these drops are pretty rare, so you need to grind a lot of enemies for them, and you often don't get anything for killing these enemies, which makes it really thankless. For bird feathers, you have to slowly approach a bird and carefully catch it in your bug net, which is very frustrating. You can also only get bluebird feathers from rare bluebirds, which will despawn if you miss catching them once. For tumbleweeds, you have to wait in the desert for one to randomly spawn off screen so you can try to catch it in the net, but they roll faster than your walking speed with the net out, and if they touch any walls, they instantly disintegrate. They're incredibly aggravating, and you need tumbleweeds to upgrade your bug net to make them easier to catch. There are a couple materials that are actually enjoyable to get. You can steal monster horns from bokoblins by using your whip, which is pretty fun, and killing a Lizalfos will always result in it dropping a lizard tail, so they're actually rewarding. Dusk relics are also great, but I'll talk about those a bit later on. Other than those few exceptions though, gathering treasures is a total slog. Most of them are too out of your way or spawn too rarely to get during regular gameplay, so you have to go hunting for them. And if you're going to be hunting for treasures, it's pretty much necessary to have both the treasure medal and cursed medal on you, or you could potentially spend cumulative hours of playtime grinding for random drops. And while you don't need any upgrades to beat the game, because they're for the dungeon items, it means that not upgrading them will put you at a gameplay disadvantage, especially for the beetle or the bow, which you use constantly after you get them. Not engaging with the upgrading system means your gameplay abilities are hindered, but engaging with it is mind-numbing tedium, so it ends up being a lose-lose gameplay system despite how good the actual upgrades are. Breath of the Wild gives you tons of materials to collect and lots of different ways to use them, so there's constant positive reinforcement. And some of these materials are very rare or very hard to get, but that's fine because they're a small fraction of the available materials and not the vast majority. And because the upgrades are only for armor pieces, you can upgrade whatever you happen to have the materials for and use cooking to cover any bonus effects you might be missing. So it never feels like you're being hindered because you aren't upgrading items that are necessary for progression. What's especially frustrating about all this is I know Skyward Sword can do a better job with an upgrading system because it already does with bug catching and potion infusion. Catching bugs is far more rewarding than treasure hunting for several reasons. Bugs do only spawn in specific set locations, but these spawns are all over the area that they appear in, so most bugs you can encounter pretty easily and frequently through exploring. Some bugs are less common or harder to catch than others, but none are tied to random drops, and you don't have to do any weird, frustrating tasks to get them. Every bug is caught with the bug net, so catching a bug is never unclear or complicated, but every bug has a unique behavior which adds variety to the bug catching itself. Enough bugs appear along the beaten path that you have plenty of chances to test out potion infusion, even if you aren't specifically looking for bugs. Infusing a potion can result in some fantastic benefits, and since potions are single-use consumable items that you can easily get more of, there isn't the same sense of urgency. Not infusing a potion doesn't feel punishing in the same way as not upgrading your permanent equipment. Infusion has no real downsides, engaging with the system is very rewarding, and catching bugs is actually enjoyable. Plus, if you don't know where to find a certain bug, or just want to gather them as quickly as possible for an infusion, the bug medal marks the spawn points of every bug on your map. The only option for seeking treasures is with dowsing, which not only is really obtrusive, but also really unreliable since you can't douse for a specific treasure, just any treasure in the vicinity. Potion infusion is fairly simple in small scope, since there are only 12 types of bugs to catch and 5 types of potions to infuse. However, the map exploration in Skyward Sword is very restricted, and the game is already long for what it is, so I actually consider keeping infusion small scope to be a plus in this case. I love that Breath of the Wild ran with this idea and built a full dynamic cooking system, but potion infusion is kept straightforward and simple to fit with Skyward Sword's gameplay loop, which is a great decision, and it's impactful and rewarding to engage with, so it's the one new idea here that I consider to be a full success. The downside to this, though, is that because it's so optional and small in scope, it's totally overshadowed by the treasure hunting and item upgrading, which are more central to the experience. To be clear, I do like when games experiment and try new things. I'm not just whining because it's too different. All of my favorite Zelda games upend traditions and have wild new ideas, but their concepts are fully fleshed out and integral to the experience. Wind Waker's Great Sea, the 3-day cycle in Majora's Mask, and the item rental system in Link Between Worlds are major changes that the game world is designed around to deliver really impactful experiences. And that's a huge part of why they're my favorite Zelda titles, and some of my favorite games of all time. I can appreciate that Skyward Sword tried so many new things, but so much of it is weird optional side stuff that has very little to offer, and it just doesn't fit together with the game's overworld design. In the next part of this deep dive, I'll be talking about what works and doesn't work about Skyward Sword's unique overworld design, as well as the sky and the town of Skyloft. There will be a playlist in the description that'll update once that part is completed. Thanks for watching and hope to see you there!